Here comes somebody. Oh, it's Andrew.
Hi,
Hi, Andrew.
how are you?
Good, good. Yeah. How are you? Yeah, good. Okay.
Oh, yeah, just hanging in there. My energies are at a low ebb, but I want to connect with folks. I do value the connection through the transition group.
Wow. Well, we have a curve and everything. That's pretty impressive. You can put back.
I know Audrey is going to join. So. I probably should have sent another reminder today. I didn't want to overwhelm people with emails.
Yeah, no, I think there was enough notice given, so. Hey, you guys look comfortable. George and Mike, I want to hang out in your backyard.
It's our treehouse deck.
Oh, here comes, oh, there's Audrey.
Wow, we have a crowd.
Getting there. I wouldn't call it a crowd yet, but we're expecting Beth and Emmy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I have another Zoom meeting that starts at 7, so
Okay.
depending on how long we go, I'll go down and exit to go to that.
You need to use, oh, you need to go to another computer then, or
Correct.
is it-
Yeah. No, I'll go to another computer.
Oh, okay. Because it's all Zoom these days, right? It's all,
Yeah.
it's all
We have
Zoom.
Zoom in every room.
You got a Zoom in every room. Oh, wow. I like that. That sounds like a song. You can write a song on that. The song of the times, Zoom in every room.
Wilbur, is that your new backyard or is that a,
Yeah, I put in a bridge and a
a
pond.
bridge? That was basically fast.
Oh my God, I didn't even
And a
notice
forest
that.
behind you.
It's very quiet in your yard there. That's a backdrop, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, wow, you really have a lovely backyard. I don't know.
I'll turn the camera around so you can see the tea house I built last year.
Oh my!
Yeah, you
Woo!
built up
Yeah,
behind.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
God, you've been busy.
Just walking to the other side of the pond is a pretty good walk.
Yeah.
I love it. That is so cool. Wow. Huh. Well, depending on how many agenda items might not have a real long meeting here either. But getting back to you, George, saying that you need to leave at 7.
Well, shall we just maybe get started and see if people join? It's a little after 6.
Yep.
Do we have
an email? We'll see if, or a text. We'll see if she shows up. But we can get started and do some introductions maybe and get going.
Yeah.
Well, the only really things that I had here was that Wilbur and Audrey, you were going to report on the Chart Your Yard, although I've kind of heard a lot about that already. But I mean, the others maybe don't. No.
Well, I've read what there was written about it, but I would like to hear it. I'm fascinated with, hearing the inside scoop on how it went, how you organized stuff, and how that all worked out this year, and whether you would do it the same or not, in future years. So I'm guessing when something dramatic like that happens, there's always important lessons learned and
Yeah.
improvements made and all that stuff. So I'm curious to hear all about that stuff.
Right?
I'm still amazed we did it. I thought,
Yeah.
you know, it was Wilbur's idea, and I thought he was nuts. Well, you can put your fingers in your ears for that part. Yeah, but I was game to try. But it was great. It was
Yeah,
very
what was the
fun.
number, the final number of raised beds that were installed?
28, I think.
28, that's a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a
Is that
lot.
four
It is
more
lot.
than last year? Or 24 sticks in my mind from 2019. That may not be.
Yeah, so maybe we can get started and we'll see if Elizabeth arrives. So typically our number was 24, and that includes and the reason why it's 24 is that it includes 6 raised beds that are for people with disabilities, and those are kind of a double high bed. So that would be 30 units. And 30 units is important because each unit takes a half yard of soil, and a dump truck full of soil is 15 yards. And so that's kind of a stop limit for us, that we can't go, well, we can go over that number, but we'd need to get a second dump truck. And so that's been our thinking all along, is that we're at 30 units. And what happened this year is that we somehow got more wood. I'm sorry, we only delivered 4 raised beds instead of 6, and so we had extra wood and we created more beds with those. Single high beds. And in fact, the last one we didn't have soil for, we just created the bed and dropped it off for them. So it was just kind of getting rid of the last thing.
What was our last thing? You just did the wood for the last ones?
Yep, we just sold the wooden bed. We asked people that were on the waiting list. There was one person left. We said, "Do you want just the frame?" And they were like, "Yes." So we let it go. So
Great.
George, you talked about this, and because of the virus, because of the conditions right now, we did things in a different way, and it showed us some things that we took for granted and that are kind of different now. So, so the garden mob was out. That was typically our one-day installation of all the garden beds. That used to be everything in one day. You know, installing the beds, building, delivering, and installing the beds in one day. And a couple of years ago, we went to building and delivering in one night, and then installing all the beds in one day, delivering all the dirt. And this year that just wasn't possible. We couldn't collect people in groups like that. So we came up with a plan of devising install teams. And the idea behind the team is to still give our volunteers the feeling of being part of a big organization, a big event that's happening, and that they would have some real personal contact with the other people that were helping them install beds, even though they were doing it separately. And so the idea behind a team is that you get assigned to a team leader. The team leader is kind of managing the process with the gardener that's going to get the bed. And you would basically schedule time with the gardener and say, "Hey, I'm available on Tuesday night. I'm gonna bring over the frame and install it in your yard. Can you have it marked out?" And then we'll do it. So throughout the process, we always followed social distancing rules and safety rules about masks and keeping separated and keeping small groups. So the first event we had was the cutting night. Actually, instead of cutting and building, we just did all the cutting in one day. And so we had a stack of wood, and we had 6 or 7 people, and we all wore masks, and we moved around, and we did it outside, and we cut all the wood, and that was ready to go.
And 4 of us were from the same family, you
Yep.
know, from the same house.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
The other thing we did, we used to have one location for all of our operations, and that was in
Bruce.
Bruce's garage. And Bruce and Aggie are vulnerable, so they just couldn't take part in that and have it in their space. So we also split that up. We used Audrey's garage for the lumber operations, and we used Elizabeth and Emmy's driveway for the dirt repository. And so that was a little bit more separation. And so that's really how we broke it up. And I think all of us were really surprised how little time it took to get the beds installed. We really thought we gave ourselves all of June. We actually gave ourselves the whole summer to get this project done, but we kind of set a date to hope to be done by the end of June. And we finished in end of May, I'm sorry. We tried to get done by the end of May.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting what year it is.
Much less what month it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the day is just completely gone. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. What day of the week is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Up to the 200th day of June right now. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So we finished by May 15th. We started on May 1st and we finished by May 15th. So
That's incredible.
we had 6 install teams, and each team had 3 or 4 members on them. We kind of did when we finally got rolling, we probably started around April 25th. And we didn't do a very good job this year of really bringing in volunteers. It was so rushed at the end. We're like, okay, let's go. So that's something that we'll work on a little bit more next year.
Well, you didn't even know for sure you were going to do it, and you were going back and forth. So yeah,
Right.
you had no time from the time you decided. You know, it was really that made it a crunch, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's some things we learned on the install of a bed. When we weren't using the Bobcat to load pickup trucks with dirt and take those to the sites. And we thought, wow, that's really a labor-saving device that's really critical to our operation. And that's going to take volunteers a lot more time. Well, it turns out that didn't happen. And the reason is because we had a giant pile of dirt. We filled 5-gallon buckets. That was pretty much our way of moving dirt in cars, not pickups, just whatever people had. I used my bicycle and my trailer.
Wow.
And,
of course.
Yeah, good for you.
and that's actually a step that you take every time you unload the pickup. You have to shovel the dirt out of the pickup into something to carry it to the bed. So you're only doing that step one time. You're filling the buckets, putting them in your car, and then you just carry them from your car to the other side. So we basically eliminated the need for a Bobcat in the future.
Yeah, and if we had too many people at the dirt pile, the way I live right on the corner, so then people could just drive up and you could see, and they would park and wait. It didn't happen too often, but if need be, we could even utilize the alley location, you know, at a minimum.
Yeah.
Future.
This bucket system also made us rethink how much dirt a garden bed needs. And what we have bigger ideas for this project, let's say that. And one of them is we could provide soil as a product to people in Longfellow. So a garden bed takes about 25-gallon buckets filled to the top. And so
20 or 25, did you say? 25?
about 20.
Yeah.
About 20.
And
But
so
fill to the top,
filled to the top.
Go to the top.
And
which
so what
I
that
don't
means is-
ever fill mine.
Yep. And what that means is 600 buckets are in a dump truck, 15 yards. And that cost us about $480. So next year we can charge about $1 a bucket, and we can sell soil, or we can distribute soil at $1 a bucket. And so
A dollar
Or
a bucket.
potentially at a different point too. You know, it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be tied to the charge your yard. I don't know how many people would need it in the fall if there's a need there, but we could start it as soon as the mulch store opened, you know, before we even started doing the
yeah.
garden beds.
So that's one thing. When earlier this year, we did a survey of people that have gotten beds in the past, and one of the things that came up consistently is that people said, "Hey, you know, our soil has settled over the years, and we could use some more compost mulch. It would be great if you could do that." Now we can. So
That'd be good. Yeah, I might sign up for getting a few buckets for my.
right.
I think also you could do a raised bed without the actual wood, or, you know, you could use reused materials, or I see a lot of people just putting cardboard down on grass and then putting mulch on top, or, you know, some combination thereof. But I think people are very scrappy in the neighborhood, and we find ways to grow stuff basically.
Yeah, so everybody could build their own raised beds and just get soil. And that would be a great service for people. And so that makes us think in a different direction. It's like, hey, now if we can sell a dump truck full of soil, we can buy another one, right? Or we can take orders and say, hey, if you want soil, make orders and let's buy some soil. And so what that means is we can go past 24 beds next year, because we could go first dump truck, 24 beds, second dump truck, soil, and more beds. And we can just basically meet demand. And so instead of having this sort of, hey, the sign up opens up and you better get signed up because it's like a lottery, and if you don't get there by tomorrow, it's going to be booked, right? There's so many people that say, oh, I missed it, right? I wanted a bed. Now we can just open signups in January. People can start ordering dirt. People can start ordering beds, and we just keep taking orders until we're filled up. So
We might be able to get more than just 15 yards in a load, because I swear, and I have to look at the footage and I have to call them too, but it looked like there was a lot of room left in the dump truck that dropped off the 15 yards. And, you know, there's the driveway.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
you didn't
that's
talk about
a-
your,
I
you
think
didn't
that's a
talk
hard
about the
limit.
website.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty big improvement this year.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah, for our internal operations, we were using a combination of Google Sheets and documents and
All the Googles.
scripts and all kinds of things. And so we built a website that kind of tries to incorporate all that. And that was pretty successful because the gardeners can see their bed and the progress. They can see notes about their bed. The teams can see information about their beds and know where things are. And everyone on the team, all these 6 teams, can see exactly where things are at, right?
Cool.
And we use kind of a, well, it's a scrum tech, or it's a just-in-time technique where it's like you take a couple beds and work on those, and when they're finished, go back to the inventory and take the next one. And some teams will work faster, some teams will work slower, but we'll just knock them off one at a time. And that worked great. People were able to, you know, interact with the website and keep track of notes and keep everyone informed. So that's a good communication tool for that. So we did have some issues with notifications about payments because we use Alliance for Sustainability as our fiscal agent, and people would make payments with PayPal, but we would have to ask Sean if payments were coming in. So it would be nice if we would know about them right away and we could move a little faster. But all in all, that the Alliance for Sustainability was really helpful with us, you know, and they got that part of it done. So Audrey, you wanna share anything about the financials? You have any more to report about how we did?
Let's see.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, sorry.
Yeah, I was looking at the overall Transition Longfellow, and I'm trying to remember now the Treasure Yard. So basically, we have not been paid yet the grant funds from LCC, and so that's nearly $700 that is yet to come to us. And you know the costs and what we bring in they're pretty close to being even, and it's usually about $2,000. So yeah, we're pretty close. We did buy some extra signs this year. We got a better rate by ordering a larger number of them. So that cost was a little bit higher than in previous years. But otherwise, you know, we actually saved some money because we didn't get the Bobcat, we didn't get the trucks. So
Yeah.
Side note, next year, something to think about in terms of the PayPal. I've come up with a system for one of the websites that I do that wants to keep track of payments. You can use a feature of PayPal where you can redirect it back to a URL, and you can have some script back behind that URL.
Sure.
And so what I typically do in a situation like that is store a record of the transaction that you're sending somebody over to pay at PayPal, and then get a message back that transaction has completed to update your own local database, so that you would have real-time live payment information without having to contact the Alliance for Sustainability. Fairly straightforward and easy to implement. And then you get to have that just totally automated.
You know, I'd love to do that, and it's totally possible, but we don't have any control of that Alliance PayPal account. It's totally, we can't log into it.
Right.
We're like,
Yeah, you
from it.
probably maybe write out some instructions for them and say, do this.
Yeah.
Here's the return URL, and you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah. That's a good point. Right?
that would be nice if that could be added.
Yeah.
Speed up the communication.
What else? Elizabeth, Emmy, you want to add anything? Your observations about how it went?
We had the dirt pile.
That was better. I mean, my fear was, like Wilbur alluded to, is that I'd have a big giant pile of dirt on my driveway all year. But I just have tree branches in my driveway. So that wasn't an issue at all. I thought really, Wilbur, you're selling yourself short on the website. Like, I think a lot of our communication issues that we were having last year, and there were a lot, it was very painful to certain people on the committee, more painful to some. But I think that all went away. I mean, I know there's still the difficulty with the PayPal, but comparatively, I thought the website was just amazing in the communication and the visibility as well. The transparency to what we're doing, I think, is super exciting. And it's super exciting that this year we broke away from all the rentals, from the trucks, from the we can seriously like seed this to other neighborhoods. And we have a big giant document where we basically are housing all of the how-tos, like time action, who to contact when. I mean, it's it's really like everything that we kind of were missing and putting together piece by piece when we kind of took on the committee all by ourselves. Was that last year was our first without the wheels?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, I think, just this year and all of that in the middle of a pandemic, it's just,
Yeah.
and maybe that was part of it, that Wilbur had that time to, to just pound out that website. I was doing some pages too, but I have absolutely zero memory of everything and anything you showed me how to do. So,
Yeah, no, I think without the website, it probably might not have been as possible as it was. And
Yes.
definitely not as
Yeah.
easy as it was.
Really
Website
good.
made it so much better.
and I think that's why we were able to finish so quickly too. We were just go. The only thing really holding us back was the PayPal. Really, I mean,
that was really only a couple. That was only a couple people. So I thought it was just, it's so slick compared to the year before.
yeah.
Now, the only piece of this that we weren't able to do at all was to involve master gardeners, and that's because they were forbidden to do anything because they're part of the U. And so, that door was closed for us.
But then, there's a lot of really great gardeners on the team and in the neighborhood. I think it was kind of like a little bit of probably a selling point to some people, but, I had a lot of gardeners that had questions and nothing was out of my league, I feel. It was all pretty straightforward.
Great gardener.
Yeah, there's a ton of experience on the committee.
I think to be fair, right, we did jettison a couple things that made it easier. One, we didn't have the master gardener step, right?
Yeah.
So that was really a pretty elaborate process where we would bring in a schedule time with the master gardener, bring them in, have them meet, get the.
We had to
report
wait,
back,
and there was
right?
there was a lot of touching there.
That's a lot of interaction. that we don't have.
Coordination.
And weather dependency, and at that time of the year it was really challenging to do that.
Did you think that
Anybody-
gardeners really added a lot of value in the long run?
I feel like I'm younger, so I don't depend on people that are masters that much anymore. That sounds really bad, but I'd rather figure something out on my own or have people that are closer to my level explain it rather than somebody just coming in and lecturing me on how you shouldn't put that there because that'd be stupid. So I don't feel like it's necessary.
Do they really say it that way?
Could I ask one thing?
I asked because I think that gardening
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
gardening is a little bit like sourdough bread in my world, which is, there's, if you talk to the expert sourdough folks, you do it this very rigid way and you follow this very specific approach. But the fact of the matter is you don't have to do that. You can learn and create and go with your own feeling. And I think sometimes the requiring all this knowledge infusion up front can be a deterrent, a turnoff for some people. They think it's almost too much or too hard. Whereas if you just say, oh, come on, anybody can garden. You put plants in dirt and water them, at the most basic level, and then people learn what works in their garden, and that the discovery of what works in your garden and your space and with your time and your energy level and commitment.
But in past years, sorry, if I could break in and just ask one thing.
Go ahead.
Would it hurt to get input from folks? Because it may be that it wasn't that useful, but maybe people really appreciated it. I don't know. Was there
Appreciated
a
what,
survey?
Andrew? Appreciated what?
Appreciated the master.
Huh? I'm sorry, what?
I'm just asking a question, informational point of information. In past years, was there an effort to get feedback from the people who got the raised beds for things such as, did you appreciate having the master gardener come talk to you, or was that not that useful? I don't know.
Elizabeth you did a survey this year, right?
Yeah, we did a survey on all the past gardener recipients. We did not ask that question. I believe at that point we already knew, either we already knew or we didn't think of it. We did a survey on what they were growing, if they were still using their bed. And that was before LCC as well, so we could kind of like show them the history of the organization. But I'm writing
Nice.
down the notes on this too, that would be a good thing for future, or really like, I think to really ask them what that looks like, right? Is
Yeah.
this an optional thing that we can, like, and maybe we don't set it up like you have to have it before, like it's on this timeline. Maybe we just make it very optional, and if we had either a master gardener or skilled gardeners, I would be open to.
Good for it to be available. Yeah, maybe an optional thing though in the
Mhm.
future.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, I can just say from my experience is that about half of the gardens that I installed, we moved those gardens slightly to get them in a sunnier spot. And when they had no really sunny spot, I did talk to them extensively about what they're going to have better success with or not, based on them having a somewhat shaded spot. So I think you're absolutely right. That is information does need to get passed, and you're right. The master gardener can provide that in that inspection ahead of time. And in this case, I was doing it on the fly. And then some people, one woman, we went to her garden, and I mean, her whole yard was a monument to growing things. So I asked her questions about what to do with her.
Did you
So
get her name?
she's right across the street from the Dowling Gardens.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So it's a mixed bag. Some people are like, I don't need the master gardener, right? I got plenty of experience. Other people are like, hey, thanks for the tips,
I would
That's a
agree.
good-
Our experience was 100% the same. Like
Yeah.
about 50% were highly skilled, and then I wouldn't say necessarily started, but and had the same questions, and it's the same experience. It's the amount of sun in the yard. But I feel like having a yard that's getting a little shadier on my own, I don't think that bars you from gardening. I think you just have to, like Wilbur said, you just need to have that conversation about what you're going to be able to grow.
And when, because, I'm guessing it favors when the leaves are not on the tree earlier or later in the year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Good point. And I think, next year, when things are back to normal, right? If things are back to normal, when things are back to normal, right? That is something we can reincorporate into the process, especially if we can start earlier with our signups and not have to worry about people being excluded, that we can have this long sign-up process, and we can get that gardener process going right away,
Yeah.
master gardener
Well,
process.
Before we leave the topic, I did want to speak on behalf of the garden mob thing. I think that was valuable. I always enjoyed it, but I think it was valuable too as a community building thing, having
Absolutely.
everybody
Yeah.
come together on that day, have a meeting. So I would hope that we could do that in some fashion.
Maybe a mix of both approaches. Like maybe there's, the slower, more methodical, trickle approach with the big giant install at
just
some
do
time.
on one day, yeah, maybe.
What could be great is to have an install day with individual teams, and people could interact while they're waiting in line, at the garden pile, and that they could still maintain social distancing, but it would be like, hey, all the teams are gonna do a bunch of installs on May 1st. So
I had a really radical idea pop into my head, and it's probably stupid and crazy, but I'm just going to say it anyway. What about if part of the payment for a bed is that you participate in helping a big community garden project at the end of the final install is a larger, more community garden space that we set up somewhere that is, you know, sort of, I don't know what that community garden space would look like or be, but we could invent one. And at the end of the whole thing, everybody who got a garden also comes and contributes to helping build out this larger community garden space. Just throwing that out and then let it go.
I like the idea of another, either creating, or I really like the idea of somehow doing some sort of a partnership with an already established community garden, not necessarily in our community. I feel like we need to do more also to bring more diversity into Charter Yard Transition Longfellow.
Here,
And
here, yes.
that to me feels
Yeah.
like something that maybe we could do somewhat genuinely. In terms of, I'm also kind of looking for a community garden that we could partner with, that we could have the city distribute mulch to both them, because that's something that the city does now. They redistribute the stuff that we composted into the wonderful compost, and then they redeliver it to community gardens. I feel like Charger Yard is a community of gardens, but I have a feeling if we were hooked up with some sort of a legit one, we might be able to work that more. But I like that idea a lot. Although I think it is challenging though, because we've pretty much set up the program that we don't really have a lot of, unless we got LCC maybe to fund it. It's, you know, like we don't make any money.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you'd have to come up with the funding for this other community garden space. But I wonder if there's other resources like Urban Ventures and stuff, and their whole gardening and greenhouse program, and if there's other people we could reach out and connect to. And one of the agenda items we haven't gotten to, but that is on my list, is exactly what you're talking about, which is how to bring more diversity into Transition Longfellow. And I think a relationship with somebody like Urban Ventures might be a way to do that. One of the tragedies that there were some, I guess I wouldn't call them tragedies, because they do amazing, wonderful work with their greenhouses and their gardens and stuff, but they're not really feeding that many inner city youth with that food. And I would love to see a way of bringing more of that, so that there was more food grown that the inner city kids could eat and make available to them. And that's something I'm very passionate about, is solving some of the food issues from the poorest people, and particularly African Americans and the other some of the other people of color that we could serve with food in our community and around. And I think that would be a way for us to expand into a more diverse population. And it's really important to me because back when what was her name, I forget, Deborah from the UK came over, and we had that meeting on the other side of the river, and one of the things that kept coming up over and over was social justice and racial justice issues in the transition movement. And one of the things that I've come to conclude in thinking through recent events is that I don't think that we're going to be able to solve truly the other issues we need to solve as a transition movement if we don't solve those underlying issues, racial justice and civil justice issues.
It's all connected.
Yes.
They're all absolutely connected. The way we treat the earth is the way police treat African Americans. There's a fundamental underneath current to all of those issues. And I think right now taking those on in some way, and I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think it's something we have to figure out and think about and start really doing things about.
Well, this is our little corner that we've kind of perfected this method, and so we can definitely take this on the road and work with somebody like that. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Have you been down to see their greenhouses or eat any of their, I don't know if they're still opening or if they're serving food or not.
I kind of doubt it with COVID. I think like that food that they usually had like food trucks or pizza oven along the Midtown Greenway bikeway. But I kind of suspect that that's not the case. They are doing financial grants to businesses along Lake Street. I think more towards Phillips area than here, but you know, they're involved in a lot of different efforts right now. It seems like.
And
Yeah,
but I think
they have some pictures on their website with a room full of massive amounts of donations of food.
yes.
Yeah, I suspect the food operation for sure is probably taking place because it's so huge that I can't imagine, you know, they're gonna let that go for an entire year. I can't imagine that's the case. But like the other things that normally would connect them to people and give them that kind of exposure along like the Midtown Greenway, I suspect it's probably going to happen in the same way, if at all. But you know, as things start to open, you know, they may, you know, be back. So.
What was the name of that organization again?
Called Urban Ventures.
Urban Ventures, okay.
Mm-hmm. And they do a lot of different things. They have, you know, social service directed programs, you know, that are not tied at all to gardening or anything. You know, it's an organization that's been around for quite a while that seems to be focused in a lot of different areas.
Uh-huh.
They do the boat building too, don't they?
I haven't heard that one. The boat building.
I thought they did boat building, like canoes and stuff. I've seen them at the state fair and other places.
Oh, really? Oh.
But I could be wrong.
You're thinking of escapes me.
I know. I'm like,
They're over in Dinkytown.
Oh, are you thinking of Wilderness Inquiry? Because they don't build the boats; they just
no,
do.
it's definitely a boat building thing.
It's an
Never
organization.
mind.
Urban boat builders.
Well, maybe that's it.
Oh, Urban is in it.
It's like for youth, inner city youth.
Yep.
Urban.
So unless my colleagues have anything else, I think we're done. We're at 6:42, so we should maybe.
Yeah, if there's any other
things, let's
Move
go
on.
to
agenda items, yeah, we need to move on to any other agenda items.
Mike's time. Yep.
Well, I'm curious, since Annette has said she's not participating for a while, are we going to do anything about that, or are we going to, you know, try
What
to?
do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, do we want to just be back in that place where we have an inactive president, or do we want to pick somebody else?
You know, really, it's just a name only thing in the past anyway. I mean, there's nothing a president really needs to do. Just we need someone on the documents, a name on the documents, you know.
All right.
I really feel that we need to let her have the time she needs to
Sure.
recuperate.
Yeah, I just sort of, I go back to where I was at before, that if we're going to be a functioning group, though we at some point, I would hope, would expect our president to do more than just be a name on a piece of paper. And if we don't want to have that conversation, then we don't have to have that conversation. But to me, you know, doing stuff is an important part of being in an organization, and the leadership is the people who make sure that that happens.
I agree with you, Mike. I think it would be helpful if our president the person designated as president had a more functional role.
Well, in some ways I disagree, because I know she was hit hard by this whole thing of losing
Well,
her
nobody's saying
business,
anything
and
bad
I
about
think you
that.
you need to give her more time. I think we need to maybe have the conversation maybe sometime in the future, but I think we need to give her more time.
Sure, but just to be clear, nobody's saying anything bad about Annette. The real question is, what is the function of the president? What is the function of the group? And, I think that's an important conversation regardless. We've now gone, something like, near as I can tell, almost 2 years or a year and a half at least with no functioning president. And whenever the conversation comes up, it's like, well, it's just a name on a piece of paper. And that's not an inspiring story for people to hear, I think, when they hear about who is Transition Longfellow, what do you do? Well, right now, near as I can tell, we're a website and we're Charge Your Yard because these folks lead Charge Your Yard and do it. And I do the website, but the rest of Transition Longfellow, from my perspective, doesn't seem to have the leadership. And I think that's why it is, because when the conversation comes up, we say, well, the president is just a name on a piece of paper.
Well,
And
I think we're missing Leslie McKenzie, and she brought a whole lot to this and had a lot of energy.
Yep.
Is there someone who wants to step into that role? I'd like to hear from them if there is, but I'm not that person.
What rule?
The role of being the leader
Role.
who does
I think that
stuff
doesn't have to
and
be,
puts
that
their life into
doesn't have to be the vision for what our president would do. I wouldn't volunteer for that. I mean, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge and networking that came with Leslie. I don't think we necessarily need to have that role as the president. I think it'd be better to have more balanced roles. I think that when you have that set up, people get burned out and they move on to other volunteer opportunities. I wonder does Annette feel, and I don't want to speak for her, but does she feel that the president is just a role on paper, or does she feel?
No, I'm not saying that. She's saying that.
No. Well, I'm not, man, I'm trying to be really careful too, because I love Annette, but is it, I don't know. Maybe. Not
When
great.
Annette took that role, she took it to fill the space. She had capacity to be the president and take over those duties and participate in the group. And her capacity is limited at this time. And so,
Right.
I think you're right. This is a bigger discussion, but I think for all of us, like for me, I can't be a all the time board member, but I can pour myself into Shard Your Yard in the spring, and that's, everybody has to decide their own commitment to the project. So,
But I think as a group, we need to have the conversation and say, and we don't have to decide today, but going forward, we need to decide what do we expect of the leaders, what are those roles, and how are we going to go about filling those positions? And if a leader can't fill that role for some period of time, how do we make sure that those things keep happening? Because otherwise, we're not really a group that's organized around anything other than the projects we just take on ourselves, really.
Yeah.
There is no organization to it. And
Yeah.
so,
although the point of that reality is that we don't have a person that wants to step into that role. So we're going to have to do something else to manage, because we don't have someone who's going to
that's right.
with that kind of commitment.
But we won't have somebody who steps into that role until we say what the role is. So we have to have that conversation. Once we know what the role is, we can say, hey, we want somebody to help us do this. And maybe we put it out on the website, somebody would come forward, maybe. But if we don't even have the conversation, we won't ever have it.
I think we all in this meeting know what that commitment is, and none of us are stepping up because we can't do it, right? So,
But But
Yeah,
I
but-
think again,
but
you're
if we-
basing it on how Leslie ran it. I think there could be a discussion about other ways of doing it, involving more than just one person, but still having some clear expectations so that we can move forward. Because it seems to me like we are not on a forward path.
I agree.
I agree too. Yeah.
I would-
And
I would-
it's that,
I would say we are on a forward path because Charter Yard has been more successful this year than it's ever been. So there's bright
Yeah,
spots and there's
okay,
dark
yeah,
spots.
yeah. Right, that's,
but chart your yard, pardon me if I'm wrong, but chart your yard really kind of does function on its own to a large degree. A lot of the same, there's a lot of overlap between the people, but what Transition Longfellow did to make it happen, other than that the fact there's some of our people are there was nothing from our leadership that was required. It wasn't a new vision that we came up with. There was nothing. I mean, we talked about it at a couple of meetings, and and Elizabeth sent me the stuff for the website, and I stuck it up there. But it was a chart your yard thing more than it was a Transition Longfellow thing, right?
But we are Charter Yard, right? I mean, Elizabeth.
We
and
are
I-
Transition Longfellow.
Yeah.
We're leadership in Charter Yard. We're committee members that are doing the work, right?
Yeah.
So if we would have 5 more committees doing 5 more projects, boom, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's another way to slice this thing,
Right, but then we just get back to the same conversation, because how do we as a group attract those people? It's the leadership of the Transition Longfellow that needs to do that. And so how do we do it collectively? How do we reach out to those people to bring interested parties to the game? I mean, I look at it this way, and I fault myself at it because I don't have the answer. But at 2 things I know, 3 things I know, 4 things. No, okay. So with the COVID situation in the country the way that it is a perfect golden opportunity for people all over the world to sit back, reassess, reevaluate, and begin that transition process. So this is the moment we've been waiting for, and what are we doing? This is an absolute golden opportunity for us to take a quantum leap forward in the transition movement, and we're not doing it. So that's number 1. I will say amplifying that is the racial issues that have exploded, the police brutality, all the political conversations going on at city council and the mayor's office that are potentially going to revolutionize the way the city is governed. Do we want to have a voice in that? Do we want to talk about that? That's another golden opportunity for us to move the transition message forward. And so I feel an urgency in kind of figuring out as a group how we want to do that, because this opportunity is going to come and go if we don't. And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's all wrong, but that's the way I see it.
I just wanted to add on to Mike's point there, having been involved in a lot of different volunteer nonprofit organizations in every point of their life cycle, from starting out nonprofits to, seeing them kind of peter out. I think that's one of the things that initially I was really attracted to with Transition Longfellow, is that it wasn't overwhelming. And I fear that without kind of like a clear, but I feel like that would make us more attractive to people coming in, is that sense of organization and communication that I think that the role of a president can help to bring together. It doesn't have to be a president. We could have co-chairs, I think there's different ways that we could talk about setting it up.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to stop using the term president, because
Yeah.
secretary and treasurer are really formalities behind the scene. Yeah,
Very
and
patriotic.
talk about whatever other term we want to use to describe this, but yeah. Well, Mike, you've done a lot of leadership development in your time, right?
I need to bug out, so forgive me, but I have another. Speaking of racial justice, I'm going to a racial justice meeting online downstairs.
So I need to bring up that.
Hi,
Diane,
Andrew.
I didn't mean to, launch that grenade into the conversation, but I really do feel it urgent that we have to find a way of maybe we schedule a special meeting just about that. There's another thing that I've kind of wondered about, and I'm not sure, if somebody would want to work on me with it. I would be certainly willing to help work on it, but I wouldn't want to take it on myself. But I think having a broader community, longer format sort of get together via Zoom, maybe hosted by Transition Longfellow, to talk about these issues, setting up, Zoom breakout rooms with different people in Transition Longfellow to talk about those things. You folks could talk about, gardening and, what charred your yard is like and why that's an important part of, the transition perspective. And, like maybe almost like a day-long event where we are on Zoom all day talking to the neighborhood. And I think we need to do something like that to motivate the neighborhood to engage with us. And I think that we need to get our leadership in place. And if we do that, we'll get a bunch of people here. Even just for George and my sourdough class, we had just a ton of people who came and wanted to do stuff like that. If we started offering stuff like that on a regular basis through Transition Longfellow, man, we would get a ton of people. And I think that, so I think we should maybe, get together and talk about how we're going to do that and not wait until another meeting goes by before we do it.
You mean a number of different subjects to talk about, you're saying, in a longer meeting?
Yes, a public meeting. That would be almost more like, with breakout rooms on all the different key topics that we have on our website, from energy production, energy conservation, gardening, all of those transition topics, and see if we get, or cover as many of the bases as we can.
It sounds kind of like what we were planning to do at our pancake breakfast in March that we couldn't have,
Right,
Like-
but just
like,
the breakout sessions online. Yep, but just have the breakout sessions online.
Right.
Virtual pancakes.
Virtual
Gluten-free.
pancakes. We could name it
I
that, our
like
virtual
I like that.
breakfast.
Everyone has to have pancakes. It would be a requirement that everybody show that they are eating pancakes.
Oh, yeah. That was like May the 4th was Shard Your Yard, and we were all going to wear our Star Wars stuff to do the garden.
We could have one
Nobody-
of the breakout rooms actually making pancake batter and teaching people how to do pancakes online on Zoom.
That's so fun. I actually like that idea.
Well, I think that's a great idea.
I like that.
That's a great idea, Mike. And would you kind of lead the charge on just kind of getting a meeting together or a committee
Yes.
to kind of work on that?
Yes, and since we can all be done here fairly quickly, I'll just follow up with an email, ask anybody who wants to help put it together, picking dates, picking content, or if there's anybody on this call right now, or anybody who sees this, because we're going to post this on the web in the group, that there's anybody who has a topic or breakout room that they want to moderate or lead, contact me at oururbanfarmmn@yahoo.com.
Great. Okay. That's great. Yeah.
Sounds great.
I like that.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that today I got an email from a group where I had done one of their documentaries in our movie, a potluck and movie night. And would you like to do this documentary for your community virtually? And it had to do about the world of plastics. I mean, just a second, let me, just a moment. It's called The Story of Plastic, anyway. And I mean, it would be something that we could do like more towards the winter, but I'd have to sign up by July 1st if we were going to do it. It's free, but we have to do like this discussion things afterwards and get them the information and so forth. So fill out this whole application before July 1st if we wanted to do that. But anyway.
Here's my take on face-to-face stuff is that this is going to go on past the winter. That's maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's going to go past the winter. We're nowhere near at 10% herd immunity yet, and our cases are going up and up and up. There's no way this is going to be over by July or August.
No, I agree with you. I agree.
We're not even done with the first wave.
I agree with you, but I don't know. So what are you saying, Mike, that I should sign up for that so that we'd have to show it by the end of December?
Do you have an email you could forward with the details and
Yeah.
ask if there's people that would work on it?
Yeah, right. I can do that. I can forward that and then you can take a look at it. I'll send it to all the planning group and you can just see what you think. But I guess we'd have to decide on a date in advance, at the time we signed up for it. So anyway, I'll forward that to you and take a look at it, see what you think. So anyway, anything else?
The Riverview also, if anyone's on the Riverview movie theater list, they've, with the McKnight Foundation, they have made available some racial justice films, including, I think this week, it's on Sundays. They just had the one Sunday. I didn't connect. You get 24 hours after you sign up for a link. But if you go to the Riverview Theater website, you should see all the info.
So
Is
is
it
that watching the documentaries online?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. But they're McKnight films.
It was Tony
Ah.
Morrison.
Tony Morrison, that's what it
Yeah.
is.
I think
Yeah.
there's
Oh, okay, yeah, okay,
Did you see that? Yeah. That's the one. That's on the 21st. That's
Okay.
the one. Stuff
very good, very good.
They're not showing anything in their theater yet, are they? Riverview?
No, but
No.
you can go pick up popcorn.
Yeah.
I
We've gotten
know.
popcorn a few
I know you
times.
get popcorn, but they're not showing anything in their theater yet. Is that right?
No, they're not.
Elizabeth, if you have that email, send it along because I'm looking on their website and I don't see anything about that.
Oh.
Check their Instagram. It's on their Instagram too. That's how I know about it.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Oh.
Hey,
Are you done?
are we done? Or anything else?
I'm done.
Anybody
Oh,
else?
next Will with
Anybody else
Instagram.
have any
Okay,
tidbits?
we'll look for your email, Mike. Thanks for stepping up.
You bet.
I'll find the link and forward it to the group.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Yeah,
Thanks,
this was
everybody.
great. I'm so
See
glad
everyone.
I'm so glad we could get together. Yeah, this is great.
Thank you, Jean.
You're
Oh.
welcome.
Talk to you
Have a
later.
good night.
Bye.
Night. Have a good evening.